Hi, my name's Sandra Myers. I'm 36, and last month I sat in a courtroom while my ex-husband held my mother's hand like they were the ones on trial together. I wasn't even surprised. I wish I could say I was. But that's not the truth. What shocked me, what broke something in me that day, was how normal they looked. Like two people calmly walking a dog through the park. Like this wasn't about where my son would live, or whether I'd be forced to see him only twice a month like a distant relative. Let me back up a bit. I'm a single mom. I've been on my own for about 2 years now after finally leaving Darren, my ex-husband of 10 years. He's charming when he wants to be, educated, well-spoken, always freshly shaved, and wearing that smug, calm smirk that makes people believe whatever he says. He's also emotionally manipulative, quietly controlling, and brilliant at making me look like the problem, especially in front of people who only see the surface. Like my mom. God. My mom. She raised me on discipline and faith and this deep generational pride in keeping things quiet. No mess, no weakness. You don't cry in public. You don't talk about what happens behind closed doors. And you definitely don't tell people when your husband makes you feel like a crazy person for having normal feelings. When I left Darren, my mother didn't offer help. She offered judgment. You just need to try harder, Sandra. Marriage is work. Stop making everything about your feelings. So when Darren filed for full custody of our son, Micah, and I found out my own mother was listed as a character witness on his behalf, I can't explain the feeling. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even betrayal. It was numb. Like everything in me just powered down. I didn't have money for a lawyer. I had barely gotten back on my feet after the divorce. I was working a grocery store job during the day and tutoring in the evenings just to afford rent on a studio apartment in a converted attic. Meanwhile, Darren lived in a polished condo, had a shiny new partner, and apparently the full support of my mother. In court, I sat alone at my little table. No representation. Just a stack of papers I hoped would mean something. School records, receipts for Micah's medication, my lease agreement. Darren sat across from me in a navy blue suit, confident and calm. My mother sat right beside him, hands folded neatly in her lap like she was waiting for church service to begin. When it was her turn to speak, she stood with such poise it made my stomach turn. I love my daughter, she said. But she's never been stable. Darren has always been a grounding presence for Micah. I believe it would be in the child's best interest to live in a home with structure. That word. Structure. As if my home was chaos. As if my son didn't have routines, rules, and warmth. As if our tiny studio full of secondhand books and handmade drawings wasn't enough. I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I'd been told not to interrupt, not to react, not to appear emotionally volatile. So I sat there, clutching a crumpled tissue I never used, and stared at the knot in the wood of the table. The judge thanked her. Just thanked her. I remember glancing back at Micah, who had been waiting outside with a court advocate. He wasn't allowed in the room yet. But when he finally came in for the final review, he looked around and asked, with a confused little frown, "Why is Grandma sitting with Dad?" Nobody answered. The judge was about to call a recess when Micah tugged my sleeve and whispered something that made my heart stop. Mom, should I show the judge what I heard them talking about in the kitchen? You know, about the voice message Grandma deleted? I blinked. What voice message? Micah didn't answer. He just reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small flash drive. I stared at the flash drive in Micah's hand like it was ticking. I didn't even know he had one. I hadn't bought him anything tech-related in months. We barely had working Wi-Fi. He must have gotten it from school or maybe found it somewhere. I didn't know. I just knew something shifted in the room the second he held it up. Darren's smile twitched, just slightly. My mother's eyes flicked toward Micah, then toward me, tight, unreadable. Micah, I said carefully, what's on that? He looked up at me and said, in the flattest voice I've ever heard come out of his mouth, "It's Grandma and Dad talking. From last Friday. I left my tablet recording on the kitchen counter. I swear you could feel the air thin out. The judge raised an eyebrow. Is this something we should hear? I panicked. I actually panicked. Because Vermont is a two-party consent state. And if that clip was recorded without permission, I could be the one in trouble. Even though I had no idea it existed until 5 seconds ago. My apologies, Your Honor. I jumped in. I didn't know he had that. He shouldn't have done that without telling someone. Micah looked down. Quiet. Small. The judge paused, then leaned forward. I'll take it under review. For now, let's move on. But the damage was already done, just not the kind they expected. Because that night, when we got back to our apartment, I listened to the file. I waited until Micah was asleep, curled up in the blanket his grandma knit for him years ago. I sat on the edge of the bed with my old laptop, plugged in the flash drive, and hit play. I expected something small, a petty conversation. Maybe my mom talking trash about my parenting style. A few digs about my income or my messy house. Something I could survive hearing. It was worse. My mom and Darren were in my old kitchen. His kitchen now. You could hear them clinking mugs, laughing. Then her voice, sharp and calm. She'll break down in court. She always does. Make sure she's alone when they call you up. Don't give her time to prepare. You sure this'll work? Darren asked. Of course. She's fragile. You just have to look steady and they'll believe you. I stopped the audio right there. I didn't want to hear more. I sat on the floor, knees pulled to my chest, shaking. My own mother had coached my ex-husband on how to manipulate the court, how to rattle me, how to take my child. It wasn't just betrayal. It was orchestration. Like I was a piece on a board they'd been moving for months. And I never saw it coming because I wanted so badly to believe she still loved me. And maybe that's the part that gutted me most. Because I knew Darren was capable of cruelty. I'd seen it. Lived it. But my mom? She held me through chickenpox, made paper snowflakes for my second-grade windows, drove me to college, prayed over me when I lost my first baby. And now she was... What? His advisor? For what? For what? I wanted to scream, throw something, call her and demand an answer. But I didn't, because what would she say? It's for Micah's best? You need to toughen up? I'd heard that voice enough times to know the script. There was no apology coming. The next morning, I took Micah to school, kissed the top of his head, told him he did nothing wrong, that he was brave. Then I went home, stared at the flash drive again and made a decision. I emailed it to the court. No commentary. No context. Just the file and the subject line. I didn't record this, but I think you should hear it. 3 hours later, I got a call from the judge's clerk. The custody hearing was being postponed. They were launching an internal review of testimony integrity, including any signs of witness tampering. I hung up and sat in silence. That's when my phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. It said, "You just destroyed your own case. You'll regret this." Mom, I didn't sleep that night. I laid there staring at the ceiling fan spinning above me like it was gonna give me an answer. Every 10 minutes, I'd reach for my phone, wondering if the court would reply, wondering if I'd crossed a line, if I'd just handed Darren more ammo. That message from my mom haunted me. You'll regret this. The woman who used to braid my hair every morning before school was threatening me. It felt like I was grieving someone still alive. The court didn't respond right away. Not that night, not the next day. But something shifted. Darren didn't show up to Micah's school pickup on Wednesday like he usually did. The guardian ad litem canceled our check-in last minute with no reason. Then Thursday morning, I got the email. In light of new material submitted to the court, this custody case is now under formal judicial review. All previous testimonies will be reevaluated for credibility. That was it. No, we received your file. No explanation. But I knew. And suddenly I couldn't breathe right. Because this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Micah. If the court thought I was manipulating evidence, even if it wasn't my recording, it could be twisted to look like I put my own son in the middle of a legal trap, that I was vindictive, dangerous. Darren would love that narrative. Still, I stayed quiet. I didn't tell Micah. I didn't respond to my mom's text. I just went to work, paid the bills, tried to act like my world wasn't cracking underneath me. Then, Friday afternoon, I got the call. It was the court liaison. She sounded professional, but clipped, like she was still processing what she had to say. Ms. Myers, the judge has reviewed the audio submitted. It has prompted an expedited review of witness behavior and custody motivations. There's something else. My stomach dropped. I braced myself for the worst. Your son submitted an email to the court this morning. I blinked. Micah? Yes. He used his school Chromebook. The message was flagged by the court's intake system due to case reference. I sat down on the floor. What did it say? She paused, then read it. My mom didn't know I sent the recording. I'm sorry, but I heard Grandma say it was a plan, that they were going to make my mom look crazy. I know she's not crazy. She's tired a lot and sometimes she cries, but she always makes pancakes on Saturdays. Please don't take me from her. I couldn't speak. I just stared at the wall like it would hold me up. He shouldn't have done that. He shouldn't have had to. That night, I tucked Micah in, kissed his forehead, and just sat by the edge of his bed for a while, watching him sleep. Kids shouldn't be the ones carrying proof. They shouldn't be the ones cleaning up after adults who break each other. I wanted to be furious. At my mom, at Darren, at the whole damn system. But what I felt more than anything was grief. For the years I let people rewrite my reality. For the fact that I let myself believe I deserved their version of love, as long as I was quiet about how it made me feel. And then, Saturday morning, I opened my front door to get the mail and found a thick manila envelope taped to it. No return address, my name in block letters. Inside were printed screenshots, bank transfers, Darren's name, my mom's maiden name, a co-owned Shell LLC. They'd opened a joint business account 6 months before I even filed for divorce. The earliest deposit? 5 days after I miscarried our second child. I dropped the folder. There was no one else home, but I still felt exposed, like the walls were watching. Like every quiet moment I'd tried to justify now had its true name, betrayal. I don't know who sent the file. I don't know if it was a mistake or a warning. All I know is that the last piece of the puzzle didn't come from court. It came from somewhere else, from someone else who knew. If you've ever had to keep your mouth shut just to survive in your own family, if you've ever been made to feel too sensitive, too dramatic, too much, I see you. I'm living it. And I don't have the answers yet, but I've got the truth now. Finally. And I swear to God, I'm not sitting down quietly ever again. The morning after I found that envelope, I walked into the courthouse feeling like my feet weren't even touching the floor. I wasn't scared anymore. I was vibrating with this kind of focused fury I didn't recognize in myself. I handed the documents directly to the court investigator. No dramatic speech, just a quiet. You'll want to look at these first. She blinked at the file name on the USB, Myers and Company Holdings, LLC, and nodded. By noon, Darren's lawyer tried to delay the hearing. Too late. The judge denied it. We were back in court that same afternoon. The courtroom felt different this time. The tension was sharp, like the air was holding its breath. Darren wasn't smirking. My mother, sitting 2 rows behind him, wouldn't even look at me. The judge went straight to it. Before we begin formal custody review, this court would like to address a new development. A joint financial entity opened under Mr. Darren Myers and Ms. Ellen Callahan 3 months prior to the filing of this divorce. He looked up. Ms. Callahan, please approach the bench. My mother stood, stiff, cold, like she was heading to a funeral. And in a way, she was. Were you aware, the judge asked, that your financial ties to Mr. Myers pose a potential conflict of interest in your sworn testimony regarding his fitness as a parent? She hesitated. Then, it was just an investment account. He needed help getting started after the layoffs. I didn't think it was relevant. I almost laughed, but my throat locked. Do you consider influencing a custody case to benefit a shared financial partner relevant, Ms. Callahan? She didn't answer. The judge turned to me. Ms. Myers, were you aware of this arrangement at any point during or prior to your separation? No, Your Honor. I had no idea. I was still bleeding from a miscarriage when they opened that account. My voice cracked right at the end, but I didn't cry. That line hung in the room like smoke. Darren's attorney asked for a recess. Denied again. The judge looked back at my mother. Your testimony is hereby struck from the record pending investigation of financial collusion. You may leave the courtroom. I thought she'd object, that she'd say something, anything. But she just nodded, grabbed her purse, and walked out like she was late for an appointment. Didn't even glance at me. But Micah did. He turned from his seat and looked right at me with these wide, steady eyes like he finally understood what had been happening all along. That's when I felt it. My spine straighten, my shoulders square. That old version of me, the one who used to apologize for breathing too loud, finally shut the hell up. The hearing moved forward. Cold, procedural, but different now. Darren's lawyer spoke less. The judge spoke more. And me? I didn't flinch. I gave them timelines, receipts, patterns. I painted the truth in facts. But the real twist came later, when the judge asked if anyone else had further disclosures. I shook my head. Then Micah raised his hand. I have something, he said, but it's not about money. The judge nodded. Go ahead, son. Micah pulled out a drawing from his backpack. A kid's sketch of two houses, one big and shiny, the other smaller with a crooked porch. Inside the smaller one, a stick figure mom, a boy, and pancakes on the table. He said, I don't want to live in the big house. I want to live where I get hugged when I'm scared. You could have heard a pin drop. But I only looked at Darren, who was finally looking ashamed. And that should have been the peak, right? But then the final thing happened. That night, after the court adjourned, I got a message request on Facebook from a woman I didn't know. It said, I think I'm your half-sister. I only found out because my mom used to get checks from someone named Ellen Callahan. Monthly, quietly, for years. I thought you should know. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just stared at it. My mother's secrets weren't just emotional. They were generational. If you've ever realized your family's love came with conditions, if you've ever had to rebuild your sense of worth from nothing but the truth, you're not alone. I'm walking that road too, and I don't know where it ends, but at least I'm finally walking it with my eyes wide open. The final hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday. I didn't wear anything fancy, just a plain black dress, clean hair, and a pair of heels I'd picked up from the thrift store. But I walked into that courtroom like it was mine. Not because I was confident, God knows I was shaking inside, but because I finally knew the truth. And I wasn't afraid of it anymore. Darren looked tired. Not physically, just hollow. That calm, smug energy he always carried, it was gone. His new attorney was tight-lipped and stiff, like someone who knew the iceberg was already under the ship. The judge didn't waste time. He started with a summary. The concealed financial accounts, the breach of witness integrity, the manipulation attempts, all confirmed through independent review. Then came the words I'd held my breath for. In light of these findings and Ms. Myers' consistent, demonstrated effort to provide stability and care for her child under difficult circumstances, full legal and physical custody of Micah Myers is granted to the mother, effective immediately. I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I just exhaled, like I'd been holding my breath for years, and someone finally told me I could stop. Darren didn't say anything. He didn't even argue. He just stared ahead like someone watching a version of their life fall apart in slow motion. The judge ordered back payments of child support, subject to penalty if unpaid. Supervised visitation only, quarterly reviews, and a formal note entered into record regarding his attempt to mislead the court. Then he paused, turned to me, and said, "You showed up when no one stood beside you." That matters. And just like that, it was done. Afterward, in the hallway, I sat on the bench next to Micah. He was drawing something in a notebook. Nothing complicated, just a stick figure holding an umbrella in the rain. I asked him, "What's that?" He said, "That's you. You always keep the rain off me." That's when I finally let the tears fall. Not because I was sad, but because I realized, for the first time in a long time, I wasn't fighting anymore. I was living again. 3 weeks passed, then 4. No contact from Darren. No letters from my mom. I didn't reach out. I didn't chase closure. Some silences are answers, and I was done begging people to love me the way they only knew how to destroy. I put that flash drive away in a small box with a note. Truth lives here. Maybe one day Micah will read it again. Or maybe he won't need to. Maybe he'll just remember how it felt to be seen, to be heard, to be safe. Because that's what I give him now. Every damn day. And as for me, I'm taking evening classes again. I've got a new job at a local nonprofit. Nothing fancy, but it pays steady and I believe in what we do. I even started therapy. Real, gut-wrenching, messy therapy. And it's helping. Because I'm not who they said I was. I never was. I was just someone trying to survive a house that made me question my own mind. And now, I'm building one where the lights stay on, the doors stay unlocked, and the love inside doesn't require permission to breathe. The lesson I've learned? The truth doesn't have to be perfect to matter. It just needs to be spoken. And if you ever have to choose between keeping peace with someone who's wrong and standing up for yourself, choose yourself. If you've ever had to stand alone or gone through a breakup no one understood, I hope you'll share your story in the comments. Not to vent, just to feel less alone. And if this story touched something in you, stay. We still have so much to tell each other.